This is not the video I thought I was gonna be posting today. Seriously, I had an entirely different video prepped and ready to go. And then, after less than just 2 days of deliberation, the YNW Melly jury deadlocked and the judge declared a mistrial. Everyone has been jumping in with all their thoughts and their opinions all weekend long about what happened and what's next. And guess what? Now it's my turn. Hey, it's Josh Sanford, America's Attorney, and I'm about to drop some knowledge about the rules of the game. So don't forget to subscribe. First things first, a hung jury is not a not guilty verdict. A hung jury is a jury that is not in total agreement. And when it comes to verdicts, there is no majority rules in Florida. It's all or nothing. And in this case, we got nothing. For the hashtag Free Melly fans, you're gonna have to keep chanting for a while. And there have been several numbers thrown around the internet about the split of the guilty jurors versus the not guilty jurors. But again, it just doesn't matter. Because if there is a new trial, yes, if, and I'll explain that in a second, if there's a new trial, there's going to be a whole new jury. So it doesn't matter if there was like a 9-3 split or 6-6 or even 1-11. They couldn't reach a decision. And it's not going to be a mistrial unless the judge decides that the split is essentially permanent, that no agreement can be reached. Which leads us to the mistrial. Once the judge decided that the jury was not going to get unstuck, he declared a mistrial. Now, if we rewind the clock a few weeks, you will remember that this is something that the defense, aka Melly's team, already asked for, and they were denied by the same judge. The mistrial that Melly wanted wasn't because the jury was undecided, but his motion was premised on the idea that the jury heard things that were unfair to Melly. So, why was it decided now? Well, honestly, basically, because the judge gave up. To be clear, the judge has the absolute discretion to declare a mistrial when the jury hasn't agreed among themselves. But an initially deadlocked jury, like on day 2, does not have to mean, and indeed usually doesn't mean, an ultimately deadlocked jury. And the longer that a trial is, the more evidence that has been offered that needs to be considered by the jury, the more time that has been committed to reaching a decision. Honestly, I was surprised that the judge let them go so quickly. Now, in my original video intended as today's post, I predicted a hung jury, big brain, but I did think that the judge would make them keep working for a while. But it's likely he saw something with some individual jurors during the trial, some hint that the jurors were taking the evidence in divergent directions that led him to have some confidence that releasing them after just 2 days of deliberations was the right move. So now that you have a pretty good understanding of what happened, let's talk about what's next. Who gets to decide what's next? It's not me. Is it the judge? Is it Melly? Is it his lawyers? Is it Cuff Boys? No. It's the state of Florida. They get to decide, just like a normal presidential election. The prosecutor can ask the judge for a new trial date, or they can announce that they're moving on from Melly, that they have someone else to charge and someone else to try. Now, realistically speaking, the state is not going to drop this case. This isn't a robbery or vandalism. This is an execution-style double homicide. The state of Florida is convinced that Melly did it. They're gonna upgrade to Melly Murder Trial 2.0, meaning hit the subscribe button and go to KB Goes Live and hit his subscribe button, because there's going to be a trial to cover and you need the best people to cover it with you. Okay, now back to the prosecutor. So chances are like 99% chance that the prosecutor is going to ask for a new trial and the judge is gonna grant it. The judge doesn't have the authority, not really, to prevent the state of Florida from taking another run at Melly. You know, like driving by again. I mean, there's this one way in which Melly's lawyers file a motion essentially arguing that no reasonable jury could believe that Melly was guilty. But this is really not the case for that motion. Such a motion like that would not be granted. Like Bruce Rivers mentioned,
He's the criminal lawyer.
the judge in charge is an elected position. He doesn't want to be seen as soft on crime, and this is a terribly notorious crime. The judge is going to let the state take a run at Melly again. And this is not a double jeopardy situation because we are, and I know this sounds strange, we're still in the middle of Melly's trial. Kind of, not really, but yes, we are. There was a mistrial, but that really means like start the trial over again. Jeopardy doesn't attach until after a verdict, and we don't have one of those. I will admit, when it comes to the prosecutor, I was kind of a hater at first, as was everyone else, but I've said it before, and I'm gonna say it again. The prosecutor kind of sort of pulled it together by the end of the trial, and she presented a stronger case compared to how she started. And a hung jury doesn't entirely discredit that. In fact, it equally credits both sides. Now, that being said, many people have said that there should be a different prosecutor, and I'm here to tell you that is absolutely a possibility. In fact, both sides can change lawyers. If I were Melly, I would not want to change lawyers. They did a fine job. And honestly, they now understand the contours of the case in such a way and to such a depth and extent that I don't know that I would trust anyone other than them if I were Melly, which I'm not. And depending on how their contract with him is written, they might have to represent him for free in the next trial. Isn't that crazy? Some criminal defense attorney contracts are written in such a way that it's a flat fee for representation through to the verdict. And there wasn't a verdict here. However, some contracts do provide for increased pay for a second bite at the apple. Either way, I would not expect Melly to bet on different horses in the second race. But for the state of Florida, that is a very, very different proposition. If you thought Christine Bradley did a not great job, you were not alone. And as you might imagine, she's not the head prosecutor in Broward County. Instead, this guy, Harold Pryor, seen here before finding out that his office failed to convict in a high-profile double homicide trial, this guy is the head prosecutor. Mr. Pryor has a serious decision to make. It's likely that he views the mistrial as a stain on his office. And honestly, I would kind of agree with that. Now, is it Christine Bradley's fault that she lost the case? Sorry, didn't win the case? Surely it's not all her fault. But just as surely, she needs to take some of the blame. Her interactions with the mother of Melly's ex-girlfriend on the witness stand were the stuff of attorney nightmares. Did she not know it was going to go so poorly? And if she didn't know, why did she not know? Why not bring in another prosecutor to examine that witness? In fact, why was she the only attorney who ever questioned any witnesses except for a couple of text message witnesses? This was a complicated trial that lasted weeks and weeks. I didn't understand why she didn't have another attorney helping her out more than she did on this trial. I'm of the philosophy that every problem is a leadership problem, and therefore I'm inclined to lay most of the blame for the non-win at the feet of Harold Pryor. Bradley appeared to have been in over her head. He's the boss. He should have seen what was happening and offered some relief. And of course, it's his office, not hers, that bears the cost of trying the case again. I very much doubt it was just happenstance that Melly had a Caucasian attorney and an African-American attorney. It's just too smart to be luck. Now, when race matters in the criminal justice system, it matters a lot. If race is an issue in a case, then from a strategic standpoint, race is the only issue in the case, usually. And I'm calling it right here. Write it down. Wait, this is already recorded. You don't have to write it down. If the prosecution does not have an African-American attorney that isn't just sitting at the table, but is actually engaged in the second trial, then Melly Murder Trial 2.0 is going to end in another mistrial. The way the state kept banging the drum of gang, 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 they brought race into this trial in a very avoidable way. As I said earlier, Melly doesn't get to decide what happens next, except for one instance that is just never gonna happen, pleading guilty. Because of the severity of the crimes, the only plea that they would offer him is life without parole, aka no death penalty, and there's just no smart reason for him to take that. This and changing lawyers is the only control that Melly has over what happens next in the few weeks that are coming up. He'll be waiting in jail until the next trial. So we know what we can expect in the future regarding the YNW Melly case. Let's talk about some numbers. Now, in federal court, if a trial ends in a mistrial, the second trial must begin within 70 days from the date the action occasioning the retrial becomes final. That's 18 USC section 3161E. That would be less than 10 weeks from today, or basically October 1st. But we aren't in federal court, we're in state court in Florida, and Florida gives the prosecutor an extra 20 days, so 90 days in all to reload. So for the convenience of the judge and scheduling, the state has to make a decision on its next step ASAP. After that, Melly's lawyers will of course have the opportunity to ask for stays and delays and extra time. And because they're private attorneys, not government employees, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the court granted extra time to them. Meanwhile, Melly's just sitting in jail, no bond, not getting out because, again, the severity of the crime. As you know, Cortland Henry, aka YNW Bortland, aka as the jury thought Cortland Sutherland, is scheduled to begin trial on October 2nd. I've mentioned in a previous trial breakdown, but this decision made in Bortland's trial is going to have a direct impact on the verdict in Melly's trial. And now you have the very distinct possibility that the trials could be happening at the same time. I mean, what would that be like? Would there be a Cuff Boys channel and a Cuff Boys 2 channel, each one posting daily? Would KB Goes Live have to clone himself? Wait, does KB have cloning technology? It was always a strategic decision by Broward County to try Melly before Bortland, and it backfired, right? I mean, it didn't work. And I'm not gonna claim that it's the only strategy or that it's even the best strategy. And now maybe it doesn't work for the second trial. Based on what we know about the GSR on Bortland, he is getting convicted of murder. And we know that the prosecutor is scared that if Bortland gets convicted, that means a jury may well say, okay, well, we don't think it was Melly, he wasn't involved, it was Bortland, not guilty. Fun fact, when the case is retried, there can be no mention, not by either side, of the prior trial. The one that we just saw, the one that we all know. In the next trial, everything is new. The lawyers and the judge will pretend for this new jury like it's the first trial of this case. Isn't that weird? You yourself could have served on a jury and not know that the same trial has already happened multiple times before because of mistrials. But, of course, only if you live under a rock. Honestly, it kind of sounds like an episode of Loki, or at least something from the multiverse of madness. And that's it, folks. Now you know the what and you know the when, so it's your turn to inform me. Do you see a second trial going any better or worse for either side than this trial that we just saw? Do you want me to drop my original verdict prediction video with my reasoning and my special guest? If so, drop your opinion in the comments below and let me know what you think. I will be back with more content soon, but in the meantime, recap the last few weeks by watching these Melly trial videos. See you soon, bye, hit the like button.